Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you might be around the world. This is a pre-recorded episode of our weekly show, sometimes multiple times in a week, of Solutionaries, where we like to bring different solutionaries, innovators, and luminaries in the field of health and sustainability onto the channel and talk with them to get to learn a little more about the work they do and what they contribute to the planet and to the human condition. But also we like to explore the potential of getting a little bit of an education and even building bridges for strategic alliances and collaborations. So I'm your host, Michael DiMartino, and again, thank you for being here. Today, I'm very honored. I used to live in Flagstaff, and his reputation precedes himself in a very good way. He worked on BioSphere 1 and BioSphere 2, and I'm still getting to know the incredible well of resources and wisdom that this person has. But I'd like to welcome Mark Nelson from the Institute of Eco-Technics and Wastewater Gardening. Did I get it? I did all right?
Close. Wastewater gardens.
Gardens, got it.
We made that up to break your associations on sewage. Oh, terrible. Get it away from us. Wastewater gardens. Yeah, great to be with you, Michael.
And I just want to say briefly, it's such an honor to have you here, and we have about 20, 30 minutes together. I met you through Natalie Pace. I always like to acknowledge those who are kind of the connective tissue. And just, tell us a little bit about yourself, your organization, and kind of what you're doing now, and then we'll recap onto some of the, formative years. Again, you being kind of way ahead of the curve of a lot of stuff that we're seeing out there as regenerative and sustainable, sometimes greenwash, but nonetheless trying to find a more sustainable ecosystem, healthier for people and planet. So again, welcome.
Yeah, well, great pleasure to also recap, what's now about 55 years of work of myself and my colleagues. Well, we got together and we decided that paradigms had to be shifted, although I think in 1969 I didn't know the term paradigm, but it was really clear this was the year that the first Earth Day happened, that the way we were treating the Earth was just really bad. It was bad for people, it was bad for, long-term economics, and it was terrible at the ecosystem and regional and biospheric level. So small group of people with almost no dinero. We bought a piece of crappy land in New Mexico that had been abused, overgrazed, dynamited out the trees, short-lived farming. We bought it for a song, and we decided a couple of years later, because our efforts seemed to be bearing fruit, let's start an institute. And we called it Eco-Technics because these were the two factors that were so at odds. Eco is doing really well, but humans and their techno and their greed and short-term approach to economics and pretty much everything was kind of destroying it. So, we set a lofty goal. First off, we like to make up names if there isn't a term that fits it. So Eco-Technics is the discipline of trying to harmonize human activities, all of the things we do culturally, technologically, agriculturally, with first local ecosystems and then to the benefit of them and the larger biosphere. And we decided that we would work because we had 20 to 30 enthusiastic 20 to 30-year-olds back then, that we would take on challenges that conventional economics kind of wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole because there weren't easy answers. So just like we started working here in, you might call it a, desertified, semi-arid grassland, New Mexico, we then started projects in tropical savannas, tropical rainforest. We built modestly a ocean-going research vessel, the Heraclitus, which then sailed for 40 years and is being rebuilt now. And, to one, educate ourselves and network, as it's called now, we convene regional workshops and international meetings where we got to meet our heroes in the worlds of art and exploration and science, and also share with them what we were doing. And the most well-known, as you'd mentioned, was BioSphere 2. That, we tended to work fairly low profile. BioSphere 2 is actually going to be low profile until the world discovered it. And it's
Well,
a great example of ecotechnics.
Well, let's do this. We'll dig into that in a second. So again, just what an incredible legacy and history. And again, you were well ahead of the curve back in such a influential time. I was the tail end of baby boomers, but on every level, we had luminaries that were, people like Martin Luther King Day today, the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, the ecological movement, the American Indian movement, the back to the land movement, the organic food movement. I mean, so many things really set the foundation for the world that many of us are still continuing to kind of work on a more positive narrative than what we see in the kind of the myopic short-sightedness of the world of like profit over people, and everything is a resource to be harvested and monetized. So again, thank you for your service, sir. And
It's been a blast. I don't know if I'm a workaholic. I've just followed, as one of our heroes said, follow your bliss. We kind of followed our bliss, and it took us into, terra incognita, places where no one had been before.
incredible. You're like terraforming the ecological sphere before we even thought about things on a more multi-dimensional holographic quantum level. So again, thank you so much. So how did it parlay for you being involved in the BioSphere project? And for those who might not be familiar with it, what was the BioSphere's mission, and what occurred within that ecosystem?
Well, after 20 years of doing these ecological demonstration projects around the planet and really meeting some of the leading thinkers and scientists, with all kinds of backgrounds, we decided, because we're also quite keen on the human urge for exploration and life's urge for expansion. So Biosphere 2 was a complex project because it had several concurrent goals. One was to make a new kind of Earth laboratory where we could study in miniature the forces and the vectors that, operate at the large scale in our Earth's biosphere. And if we learn how to make mini biospheres, it also opens us up to not taking picnic lunches, but eventually, that's another whole story, eventually expanding into space. And we will go there as, with our Earth biospherian comrades, the plants and the fungi, the soils and the waters, the plants and the animals that make life, so pleasurable on Biosphere 1.
It's amazing because when you say that, you started to say that, I had this vision of my childhood, like Star Trek and the USS Enterprise, like going out
Right.
where no one's gone before. And literally, you were working with this fusion of science and ecosystems and looking towards the future and expansion. Incredible. So, what
Well,
was
you listed some of the heroes, and let me add Bucky Fuller. And if anyone out there has not dabbled with Bucky Fuller, he is a really, revolutionary thinker. And I think the phrase that, has made him most popular, he invented the geodesic dome, was Spaceship Earth. And you think about it, we're starting to realize we're on a spaceship. And his major punchline in Spaceship Earth is, we've been given this incredible spaceship, planet Earth, traveling through space, but we don't have an operating manual of how to operate it. And that has been kind of a motif of Eco-Technics is, let's figure out operating manuals that work on many levels. It's like the win-win needs to be win-win-win-win-win-win-win. And what I have to throw this in, what really appealed to me, poor Jewish kid from New York City, got a scholarship to an Ivy League school, could do the academic route, but I was so bored by it all. When I got to the ranch, they said, well, the ecotechnics dharma, the way of life that we're going to proceed, is we're going to do three things concurrently. We're going to work on ecology, we're going to work on enterprise, so we are self-sufficient and we're not dependent on sugar daddy and all of that. And we're going to do theater. You know, so we also, the artistic side is going to be integrated at the most primal level. It's really good psychotherapy to get out of your old galoshes and to learn how to play different roles. But that's what really appealed to me and still does about the spirit of Eco-Technics. And you
I
could
re-
say BioSphere 2 was an elaborate, beautiful theater piece. Of course, some of our
well, I
critics say that as well, but
Well, I really love that too, because when I think of Buckminster Fuller, I come up, and people like Barbara Marx Hubbard, I think about what I call full spectrum regenerative design or solutions. We can't just look at one element and put a band-aid on it. Like all these things like ecology, green economy, green technology, science, circular economics, agriculture, food, water, mitigation, remediation, the whole idea of basically, like you're saying, bringing art, culture, looking at the traditional wisdom from around the world. We don't have to keep recreating a wheel. And how do we bring this into a coherent, aligned, holistic ecosystem so that all these systems are working synergistically and kind of symbiotically together? So I love what you said that. And I think Bucky also said, don't fight the problems, create alternatives. I mean, it's like we can protest and we can do all these things about, this is what's wrong, but like go out and create the alternative. So,
yeah, exactly. I love that actually. You know, problems are opportunities or challenges, and we need solutions. So I'm on that wavelength totally. I mean, you know, first off, it's silly, you know, wringing your hands in despair. You know, we don't have time for that. We need action at the micro level, at whatever level, you know, the people listening to this can muster.
yeah, and I will say this: you are the full embodiment of this show, Solutionaries. So again, such an honor to have you here. We're going to think about, contemplate some potential regenerative, solution-based, innovative initiatives we can kind of maybe collaborate together. I'm constantly learning and inspired. So again, thank you. So in the biosphere, can you tell us a little bit about your specific role? I know there was a lot about the idea of gardening, water, soil, waste, and some of these things. How did you approach creating, and what was the symbiotic or the interconnected model that you were working on there for the biosphere?
Well, you know, actually, conceptually, it was an integration of the ethnosphere, the whole range of human activities, with the technosphere. And, you know, early on, a name that probably few of your listeners have encountered, Vernadsky. Vladimir Vernadsky was this amazing Ukrainian-Russian scientist who really figured out our modern understanding of the biosphere. And he preceded Lovelock and Lynn Margulis, the Gaia hypothesis, a long time before. And in the Russian tradition, the Vernadsky tradition, you know, the human situation is an interplay of technology, or the technosphere, and the biosphere. So we did have that overarching model. And I should say, there's a lot of hubris, you know, a little bit of chutzpah to call a 3-acre facility in southern Arizona biosphere 2. But we were underlining the point that we only have one biosphere. And as we would say in, modern techno, we're destructively testing biosphere 1. Which is not a really great idea because, and I think this coin has dropped in the years since biosphere 2, it's our life support system, people. We are screwing with our life support system. So we had to make biosphere 2 essentially airtight so that, you know, what happened inside there was really a different biospheric metabolism than out in the outside environment. So we had a great learning experience of getting top engineers and top ecologists, I mean, really
Wow.
top innovative ones, working together to design this guy. And the engineers had to learn that technology did not run the show. It basically provided the conditions for life to flourish. And anything that they wanted to do had to pass a test. And the test was, you can't pollute this biosphere and release substances that damage the life inside. So among, why I'm enthusiastic about BioSphere 2, and we were told back then, we're talking about a closure from 91 to 93, 5, 7 years of building it. We're 50 years ahead of the curve. We probably still are. But that kind of thinking is exactly what we need in our global biosphere. We need engineers and ecologists to work together because we're not going back, we're not Luddites, we're not going to get rid of technology. We need to integrate technology with life. So that was beautiful. And I sometimes call it the ultimate ecotechnic experiment. If you seal things up like that and you have lots of materials, equipment, I mean, we have a mini world. We have to produce waves and wind and recirculate water and get the right water to the right place. We have to have a farm that goes beyond organic to feed 8 people, right, on half an acre. And this got me into the shit business, wastewater gardens. I was among my tasks was I was in charge of the sewage system for BioSphere 2. And we worked with a great pioneer from NASA, Billy Wolverton, also known for his pioneering work on indoor plants for cleaning up sick buildings. So everything recycled, including our sewage system, was a beautiful constructed wetland, and all of its remaining nutrients went back into the irrigation for the farm. So circular economy in spades, because in a closed system, those cycles are really sped up.
Wow, I'm just taking in everything that you're saying, and hopefully we're going to get on the right timeline and narrative here. We might all have to go back and be living inside these biospheres, insulated and firewalled from all the microplastics, the geoengineering.
No, 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 no,
No,
no,
no.
no.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about this, and it's like so interesting. And not only were you ahead of the curve, but you were charting this, mapping this, coming up with systems. And what you were saying is the waste and the water was helping to feed the gardens. Is that correct? You were
Yeah,
everything was
yeah,
kind of
even more than that, it was a beautiful green system. Uh, you know, uh, Basically a human-made, human-designed wetland. So it had floating plants and emergent plants. It was beautiful, beautiful
wow,
flowers. We cut those plants to feed our animals. And, it also harbored a few volunteer frogs and ladybugs. It was a real
wow.
delight. It blew my mind. So here I am, the kid from Flushing, Queens, born in Brooklyn, in charge of a sewage system for a whole world. And the big thing, and I encourage people, Google my name. I've written books and articles about the experience. It's kind of my duty to share that experience. But the 8 of us were so mindful, is the current term. We were so cognizant that our life support, our symbiosis, our dependency on the health of that living system inside was so profound. When I was getting ready to go out, I said, well, what could I do to connect people who are usually oblivious with where their food comes from, what is sustaining the atmosphere, the air, and sewage is another great one. When we flush the toilet, where does it go? So I wanted to make a solution that can be scaled for individual houses or for small towns and cities, for industry, that is actually a green solution that not only detoxifies the sewage, but takes advantage of the beautiful nutrients and everything that goes into a constructed wetland. So constructed wetlands are really boring because they're usually done by engineers and they just put in one type of reed and that call it a day. No, I mean, so we decided wastewater gardens. We're going to make these things irresistibly beautiful, picking plants that occur in that climate, but there are beautiful wetland plants in every conceivable one that people will fall in love with it. And then they will be mindful that they're not going to use toxic chemicals and dump it down their toilets and drains, because they're bonded with the beautiful trees and flowers that are growing outside their house or in their hotel or whatever. So I just fell in love with that, and we've been doing it all over the world at micro scale and large scale. We brought the systems for the first time into countries like the Philippines and Algeria, Bali, Indonesia, etc. And now we have a modest project for 10,000 people in southern Iraq called Eden in Iraq.
Wow, incredible. Because, I think about being in the biosphere, and this is the way from a very young age I tried to think about things that, everything we use from our body care products, from our household products, our cleansers, our detergents, our bleaches. And then we start thinking about, okay, well, we're going to take care of our lawn in the age where we have glyphosate and Roundup and herbicides and pesticides and insecticides, which are decimating our pollinators, which are the key to our food security. I started at a very young age kind of divorcing myself from a lot of those things, which has honestly led to a better quality of health. I don't think I've had to go to a doctor for several decades. But we start thinking about putting it in your drinking water. Is it drinkable? Is it potable? Is it cleanable? Like you said, sewage, waste, growing food from that. I know a lot of people who worked with aquaponics that were doing fish ponds and harvesting the different elements of it and stuff. So incredible. So let's go to the current day in the time that we have, and I would love to circle back. Remind me at the end, I'd like to know if there's any films or any links I can share with people about the biosphere so they can kind of see the project in action.
There's an Eco-Technics channel on YouTube.
Great.
And the most accessible film, it has some flaws, but it's still kind of fun, is called Spaceship Earth, that debuted at Sundance a few years ago, just before COVID.
I remember
And
that
I'm
one.
happy. I'll send you some links that you can share on your website.
Great, thank you. And I remember living in Flagstaff in the '80s and hearing about this. I'm not sure the years, and then I got a chance to visit Arcosanti and Paulo Soleri's work, and just starting to think about ecological design and biomimicry. And these are not countercultural ideas. These are literally the foundational solutions and elements and technologies and design templates that we need for humanity to even have a future. I see a lot of people save the planet. Yeah, save the planet, but we saw during the COVID, since you mentioned it, that nature started to regenerate itself over those couple of years when we weren't adding to the accelerated destruction of it. Fish populations came back, forests regenerated, all these things. But again, becoming aware of the negative impact that society and so-called civilization can have. So moving forward, what are you doing these days with your company? And can you get into a little more some of the systems and what exactly you're working with? Because we want to make sure people really get this in their brain. Besides an image of the biosphere, what can they do? What solution? What insight can you offer them in the time we have left?
Well, we love that Margaret Mead, expression, never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has. So the big thing, when I go around is raise your expectations of what you and your colleagues can do. We started with nothing. We couldn't hire plumbers and electricians. We had to build our buildings and figure everything out. And Ecotechnics still thrives. So we have a project in Puerto Rico, really pioneering. It's sustainable forestry in a secondary rainforest, planted 40,000 trees, a spin-off technology, which started even before Maria knocked down virtually every old tree in Puerto Rico, was harvesting unused resources, hurricane-felled trees, and reestablishing a wood industry. We're rebuilding the Heraclitus in Catalonia for hopefully another 40 years of exploration. And, all of our projects welcome volunteers. The original one, and where I'm speaking to you, is called Synergia Ranch. A shout out again to Bucky, who is a champion of synergy. that put things together to counter entropy and have surprising, unexpected qualities. So all of those are ongoing. We have alliances with similar minded people in Argentina, in Brazil, in Catalonia, and there are a lot of people, unsung heroes, who are doing the hard work of figuring out new ways. I mean, to me, BioSphere 2 is a great opportunity because we had to throw out any expectations. And if you're going to make a livable world and you need a lot of technology, how can you integrate that? And how can you like make a mini rainforest that has the feel of a Brazilian rainforest? That Biosphere 2 is still operating. It's now owned and operated by the University of Arizona. And one of our dreams is kind of become a biospheric university. And they're doing comparative studies between the Biosphere 2 rainforest and natural rainforest in Brazil. And, so get inspired. I hope my books and you'll see on the Eco-Technics channel a number of the talks that we've put out there. You know, it's a
Inc-
world,
wow.
the crisis of the world is an opportunity. And we're seeing, the obvious one is the issue of making our atmosphere less greenhousey. But it's kind of an indication that we have to rethink virtually everything that we do. Industrial agriculture is really bad for farmers, for the people eating dubious food, and it's completely unsustainable. You could go on and on and on. This means that innovation, sustainable, regenerative, even the fact that we are using those words is a step up. And I tell people, and it's hard to believe, but when we were doing Biosphere 2, most people didn't know the word biosphere and they couldn't spell it. So now we can spell it. I think we're starting to realize it's actually our life support system. And we called the crew. I'm very proud to be a biospherian from the first closure experiment in Biosphere 2. But the coin is still to drop. Michael, you are a biospherian. Everyone you meet is a biospherian, but we don't know the implications of that.
Amazing. Yeah, I love, even with the show Solutionaries, it's like you have to find solutions. And with our organization, Earthstock Foundation Enterprises, our whole platform is people, Earthstock, they think of Woodstock, which wasn't the direct correlation, but nonetheless, I am the tail end of the baby boomer generation, a zeitgeist moment in history where all these things imploded. But Earthstock, in the sense of take stock in people and planet, those are the real wealth that we have here on the planet. So it's really incredible, and I'm so enjoying our time together, and the work that you've done, and have these living solutions and prototypes and things actually still happening. So in the few minutes we have left, I mean, I could talk forever. This is so in my wheelhouse, and the fact that you have the whole system design, like you were doing the theater and all the different elements, the ag, the science, the water. I mean, that is so essential. So, pivoting back, what would be some solutions or some simple words of wisdom you could offer people today, in their own life, that they could kind of contribute to being part of the solution, part of being a more conscious, responsible biospherian than contributing to some of the problems that are happening right now on the planet.
Well, the Buddha said the Eightfold Path begins with right thinking. So I think getting out of the illusion, I'm really unhappy with the environmental movement because the biosphere is not an environment like wallpaper in your bedroom. So right thinking is the beginning of it. If you don't realize that you are a biospherian and that every breath that you take is a product of the biosphere supplying you oxygen and you're reciprocating or if you're not cognizant of that, you're in illusion, you're in a fantasy. And I think most people are. I mean, of course, Now we're a little bit of an older generation. The younger generation, I think, is more on, on the qui vive about that. I think there is no planet B. No, we're not going to. Biosphere 2 also showed how much our biosphere gives us basically for free. You make a little one, you need an investment of $150 million. Okay, we want to mass produce them at some stage, and every university should have a mini biosphere. Students could go in there to be inspired. It could be a great science laboratory, but start by changing your thinking, get educated, and then start looking around. I mean, I wrote a book called The Wastewater Gardener, preserving the planet one flush at a time. And at the end of that, in the conclusion, I ended with the feces sphere meditation. So you can go, flip to the end
My
of that. I
God.
think it's in Kindle. The book is out there. But really, find out, where is your water coming from? The answer is going to be different depending on where you are, even where you are in a city or a state. What happens when you flush that toilet? Get interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me when I was living in Nevada City, I'm in southern Colorado now, but we did a thing called the Sacramento River Watershed Project where we focused on the watershed from Mount Shasta and the glacial, the coastal range along with the Sierra Nevada and the snow melt, and what created the watershed and the Sacramento River, and then the San Francisco Bay, the San Francisco Delta, 1,000 miles of waterways. But looking at that, we tried to educate people about the amount of contamination that happens from inorganic agriculture, that happens from industry, all these things. And it was sad because people would get inspired. Now I'm a huge advocate, like from the Ram Dass school, of the greatest institute of social change happens in the heart. Trying to change people's minds alone is kind of an uphill struggle sometimes. But nonetheless, we're at this crossroads right now where we have to start deploying solutions. We all have to roll up our sleeves and not just complain and protest, but we have to become an active part of these solutions. So we did that for 18 years. There's still elements of that lived on. We talked about pollinators and fire mitigation, but right now, we probably have just a couple minutes left. We're in the age of PCBs, microplastics, forever chemicals that are now being used in fire retardants. And we have these mega fires right now. So that's a whole next level solution waiting to happen. And for me, the biggest one right now is I'm not anti-technology, but I used to be a reporter and investigative journalist. We have our Regen Global magazine, which is quarterly, which I'd like to invite you possibly to submit something in the near future. But the big one is last year, AI technology and the cooling of these
Yeah.
big used more water than all of the water bottling companies on the planet combined. So technology is now consuming more water than human beings. So again, I like to be about solutions. I don't want to be like against things, against technology, against this, but we have to find solutions and do things in a better way. And again, you have decades of doing this, and amazing. I could go on for hours, but I don't think people will listen that long. So any final thoughts before we complete? And really, it's been such an honor to have this time with you, and thank you for the amazing, groundbreaking water remediating, regenerative, sustainable scientific work that you've done. Incredible.
Well, just remember, you're not alone. The biosphere is on your side.
I hear a song, "The Biosphere." You remember that time is on our side. Okay.
I was thinking about the John Lennon give peace a chance. Well, give nature a chance. I think COVID, gosh, if you stop flying so many airplanes and you stop driving around cities, we have a project which I should have mentioned, the October Gallery, which has a modest goal of finding the cutting edge artists around the world, the trans vanguard, and giving them a platform. And it's a great space right in the heart of London. So, we are modern ecologists. World cities are really important as well. So it's also like the biosphere is on your side. Sure, I love, like the rest of us, I love pandas and whales and boab trees. I spent time in a region where we had a project. But, think of, humans, we are biospheric, you know, children. We're children of the biosphere. So that E.O. Wilson, his fancy biophilia, I mean, the fact is, if you're healthy, you're in love with your life and the life around you. Just
Yeah.
extend that. It's not just the humans, it's our microbiome, it's the fungi, it's all those little critters that keep the world going. We're really blessed to, I think it's also an opportunity. We're living in interesting times. Is that a curse? I don't know. It's a challenge, and it needs many, many billions of solutions.
Well, many of us might even have been consciously incarnated at this time to help be a bridge. I mean, you have the people like the Greta Thunbergs and the younger people, and so that's why I say regeneration is a intergenerational movement. It's not just a word. We have to go beyond sustainability, and we need the Generation Z to the baby boomers. We all have to roll up our sleeves. We have to learn how to collaborate and not just compete. And we have to put people and the environment before just profit alone. So incredible. I've really enjoyed our time together. If you want to text me any links that I can include in the broadcast, but I'll get this package and in the can, and I'll get it to you for your approval. And I feel really inspired. Now I want to come and hang out with you someday, and some of these projects sound incredible. So it seems like the world's opening up for more travel, more connectivity, and I don't know if I'll be taking a motorless boat across the Atlantic like Greta, but I'll be trying to do as much as I can to mitigate as much negative impact on the ecosystem as possible. So for those of you joining, we've been talking with Mark Nelson, and a pioneer, innovator, solutionary, scientist, artist, visionary. Like, wow, I'm charged. So thank you for your time, Mark, and thank you for Natalie Pace, and I think Julia was connected to the center in San Diego, and others. So, just we're all connected and we're all in this together. So again, thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone for watching another episode of Solutionaries.